What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Reseller Greatness Podcast. And Drew, I'm going to say it. We have such a treat today. You might be one of the greatest resellers of all time. I'm going to go there. I am
Wow, thank you,
going to go
Tech.
there. And we have such a treat to have Drew on. Drew is an OG in the reselling game, in the vintage game, in the brick and mortar game. He's built brands, he's sold brands. I am not exaggerating. You might be one of the best of all time to do what we do. But let's just start where a little bit about you, but I guess a little bit about you would be starting where it all came from, and selling clothing and reselling is in the bloodline, right?
It is, man. Thank you for that intro. It's very nice. We grind and then we forget to think of the history and what we've done a lot of times, and it's nice to hear. I'm not gonna lie. So thank you for that.
I truly mean it. I don't, there's no cap. What you, your brother, what your dad, what all of you guys have done, it's not matched by many people.
Well, thank you. I look up to you, and I'm stoked to be on the show and chatting. So yeah, I jump into some of the history. So like you said, me and my brother and my father have been doing this forever, especially my father. So his history dates back all the way to the '60s, right? And he was one of the pioneers in the vintage clothing business. And that's not just to toot my father's horn, but he really did. He stumbled upon it, sort of out of luck. So the story goes that he was always an entrepreneur, and he had bookstores, on college campus at University of New Hampshire. And back then you'd buy books back from the students and then resell them. So I guess that's even resell, right? You'd be
Sure,
buying
yeah.
the books back
Yeah.
and reselling the books back because the new books were super expensive, right?
Yep.
Everybody knows that if you went to college. And then in the summertime, he would head off campus. He went to the beach in New Hampshire, and he had a head shop, which back in those days was like music, posters, counterculture goods, art, and things for smoking dope, right? Pipes and papers and such. And I guess what happened was somebody called him, or he found out that a costume rental place was going out of business. So a rental facility that would rent costumes to plays, theaters, maybe movies and stuff at the time, or whatever you needed a costume for, was going out of business, and they were selling all their costumes. So you can imagine this place is full of all kinds of vintage clothes,
Hmm.
period things dating way, way, way back. Um, and this was before vintage clothes as like a genre or cultural thing was around. Sure, people probably still had secondhand stores here and there, but even thrift stores were probably a lot less heard of than they are, say, now. So anyway, he bought out this store, put out a rack of clothing in his head shop, and the stuff was just selling like crazy. So you can imagine he's like, wow, used clothes, this funky stuff that was just for dress up is what the hippies want. I got to go find more. And that
Sure.
spawned his interest in it. And then he learned about these clothing recyclers and where people had used clothes for sale, and the export business of the American used clothing. And then he started to like really dive into it from there. So myself, obviously, like, I grew up around it. He had a business when I was a kid. In the '80s and '90s, growing up in Ontario, we were like right on the border of. My dad's American, like I said, from New Hampshire, but he met my mom in Canada, so we're Canadian and American, and we lived right on the border of Buffalo and Niagara. Um, so he had his businesses over. He would actually drive across the border every day, which in that area, like if you live right on the border, a lot of people did. And we grew up around it. He had used clothing business, so it was kind of what we knew, you know. I learned it from him. I learned all about used clothing. I kind of got into the style of it and fashion of it when I was, say, a teenager, like growing up skateboarding and snowboarding, and that was like the grunge days, right? Like
Sure. Yeah.
So, you want that the used flannel or like the old gas station jacket or something like that. And
Hmm.
it was cool because we could go and grab it from my dad. Actually, in one of the first like instances of us really getting excited about it was we were kind of into raving too in the 90s. And back then raving was all about like Adidas tracksuits, right? Everyone's dancing all night in these three-stripe Adidas tracksuits. So my dad was able to get us a ton of these two-piece tracksuits. Like I'm talking like 500 pounds of them at the time, which we were just selling them to all our buds and all the ravers. And um, yeah, it was pretty sweet to be able to access these things that people wanted.
And
And yeah,
on
go ahead.
your channel, you have a lot of interviews with your dad, and your dad is getting up there in age, and he's still recalling all of these crazy stories. And I'll link your channel below. But like those conversations between you and your dad, those are priceless, dude. Like between you guys, I could tell they're priceless. And just the stories that he's telling and like the evolution of selling pre-owned clothing in America, in North America. Like he was there in the beginning of that. The evolution of the rag houses, he names all of his stuff like the rag machine. A lot of people now, like they get excited about rag house, but you guys were doing that 50, 60 years ago, doing the rag things like that, military surplus. The story about him actually selling at Woodstock was crazy. And so if anyone is interested about that, like you are giving us access to somebody who was really a pioneer in this game. And then like you and your brother, you guys started doing it as well. And the first time that I heard about you guys, and I didn't know it was you guys, but I was at the flea market and this guy sold a bunch of snapback hats, right? And he's like, hey, and I was buying them like crazy. And this was like right before the pinnacle of like, the worldwide snapbacks, vintage exchange, all of that. And dude, I was getting Raiders scripts like $5, and I would sell them on eBay. Bang, they would sell same day. And this guy said, any hat you see on FASINFRANK.com, I could get. And I didn't know what FASINFRANK was. And so that is the name of your YouTube channel. But I was sitting there at the flea market. He said, any hat you see on that page, I could get. So tell us the story of FASINFRANK, and then also tell us the
Yeah,
story about the snapbacks for the reason why he said, any snapback you see on that page, I could get.
yeah, okay, for sure. That's so awesome. So, so F is in Frank. Me and Jesse got into it in the early 2000s.
And
We
Jesse's your
started like,
brother.
yeah, Jesse's my brother. Shout out my brother Jesse. Um, he's a couple years older than me, but he's my partner. And at some point in the story, we became partners and stayed partners to this day.
Yeah.
So yeah, back in 2000, I guess early 2000s, we were like dabbling in vintage. Jesse was actually helping my dad pick for his store. He moved back to Vermont for a while and he had a store there, and he was helping my dad source clothing in Ontario and shipping him truckloads to his store. And Jesse started to learn a lot about the clothing industry and a deeper knowledge of the clothing. Like we grew up around it, but it took us to like get into it in our 20s to really learn about the clothing and learn what was cool and what the rest of the world wanted, and um, the history of everything and how to date clothing and all the intricacies that go into vintage, right? It's such a knowledge based thing where like you just really have to immerse yourself in it to learn it, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I guess F is in Frank, Jesse, because we grew up in the 90s, Jesse's a music producer. He's really into hip hop, drum and bass, jungle music.
Mm-hmm.
We grew up skateboarding and snowboarding and all this counterculture stuff. So, like the urban clothing and the clothing of the people who we looked up to from, like, say, music and hip hop resonated with us more, and especially Jesse, right? So, early on, Jesse was into this kind of, say, 90s vintage before 90s vintage was really popular, right?
Sure.
And he had like a sub kind of brand called Hoboken Haberdashery early on in the 2000s, where it was strictly focused on that, and snapbacks were a part of that, right? Now, fast forward, so he was doing pop-ups like in New York, mostly New York, as he was living in Toronto at the time. Now, I think a lot of this urban stuff, snapbacks, FUBU, Carl Kanai,
Oh yeah.
shoes too, like Nikes, Reeboks, the list is huge and the stuff is still popular today, was still available in basements and stores
Oh,
and,
sure.
dead stock, right?
Yeah.
Because you have these mom and pop stores that would have just like kept it or held it or whatever. So a few times he was doing pop-ups in New York, and he got some leads onto some of these digs, we call them, where he went and bought out these stores and found really cool. And the snapbacks at that time were probably the best seller, right? This is before the boom. This is before the snapbacks really boomed.
Way
The snapbacks
before.
were selling good. It was like an entry point thing. Like when you hit on an item where you're like, everyone can buy it. There's not like it's adjustable hats, so you don't have to have sizes. It's easy wearable thing. It's like selling bags, like everyone can buy a bag. You don't have to like try it on, and it doesn't have to look good on your butt. So these things are selling like crazy, and this was selling through pop-ups, selling through this was before we really were online a lot. It was mostly selling through pop-ups. And he just so Jesse was very instrumental in this. I'll say this. Jesse was super instrumental in booming the snapbacks. Fast
Super.
forward to 2007, we open what is now the company FASINFRANK. We name it. We partner up. The time period you're talking about probably would have been like 2008, 2009 when somebody said that
2007,
to you.
2009. Yeah, that was the
Yeah.
exact time. Yeah.
So we had the idea to create the website. We were buying snapbacks like crazy, as much as we could get. We had our store, which was selling snapbacks, but at a one retail store, you're not able to move like a ton of units. But we were buying them because we were like, we know it's a finite resource. If we can get them, we're going to buy them. We would find them as low as like sometimes $2, sometimes $5,
Yeah.
sometimes a bit more, but like they were pretty much in the range of like $2 to $5 at that point because
Oh
people
yeah.
just wanted to liquidate. And what happened was we in 2008 or something, we opened the website, and we were one of the first websites to really have collections of stuff like that on the web. This was early on of like e-commerce. It wasn't as easy to pop up a website. You had to like put in more work to do it.
We're talking before iPhones. Like before iPhones, like you guys thought, hey, let me put this stuff on the internet. And back then that was such a foreign concept to sell stuff on the internet, first of all, and sell vintage old clothing on the internet. So like where did that come from? Where was the foresight from that?
I guess we wanted to reach a bigger audience, but we also were on eBay too from quite a ways before that. So we knew that the internet was a viable method to sell, but obviously getting people on eBay to buy your stuff is different because you don't have to do any marketing really,
Yeah,
like compared to like a website. And we were like,
sure.
are they going to buy on the website? We weren't really sure. But what really happened was we created the website, and it was early enough that we created so much organic SEO because of it. So if you search that back in those days, we were the first one popping up. If you first
Right.
searched any picture, Google Images were like loaded with our pictures of snapback because we were posting like crazy. We had a team of people doing this. We had a warehouse full of hats. So we were able to get enough organic SEO that like it just worked back then. And like I don't even know how you would go about getting that kind of SEO now. Like, you'd have to pay teams of people
Sure.
so much money because everybody's fighting for these keywords now. But back then we just owned it. And that's why people like the guy you met at the flea market knew us because we put on all these people. And I've heard that lots of times they would look on our website as sort of this reference guide
That's
before
what
there
it
was
was.
any other
Yeah,
reference guide.
that's
Yeah.
exactly what it was. And like you guys always had that foresight, and you guys were always like one of the first to market with a lot of this stuff, the first to market with the website. You guys have the brick and mortar stores, and back when you guys started them, like now they're on every single block. They're very easy to get. I mean, me of all people have a vintage store, and my store has been open for 6 years, and I'm just a guy who sells on eBay that eventually had a store. But like you guys, tell us a little bit about all the stores, and tell us a little bit about, I guess, selling in Canada, because you're repping for the home team. We got Wings Over Canada. And so Canadian, doing it big in vintage, doing it big in retail. You have the brick and mortar stores. And we can kind of like we're painting the picture on how all of this kind of evolved. So the brick and or the
Yeah.
website came first. You guys obviously started doing well on that. and then that kind of morphed into having one store and then into more stores. And then I believe from Instagram, you've just opened another one last couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, we did just less than a week ago. So super stoked on that. And we're phasing into more of a retail plan now where we want to open more stores going into the future. But yeah, like you said, the website kind of came first. Then when we wanted a store, we opened our first store in Whistler, which is a ski town, like world class famous ski town up here in Canada. And we kind of were like, it was our first kick at the can at opening a store. We knew the market there. We knew like it had a baked in customer base of tourists with money, plus locals that wanted to shop. So we just knew that. I don't know. We thought it'd be fun to do that store, which it was for a few years. So that store opened in 2007, late 2007. Great experience. We opened this really cool store. At that point, it was, we had the snapbacks, we had a lot of the 90s gear, really cool mix of clothing. It was like a kind of a time in ski fashion too, where like neons were going off. So like we could sell all this old 80s stuff that people wanted, which was fun. And then quickly after that, we opened a store in Toronto. Actually, no, sorry. We opened our store in Vancouver and then opened a store in Toronto. So for a short period, I think we had 3 stores. Then the Olympics came to Whistler in Vancouver, which was like this huge boom bust thing that kind of like was lackluster and didn't really. Everyone thinks they're going to make all this money off the Olympics coming to their town, and you won't probably. um, so we ended up closing the store in Whistler and then had the Vancouver, Toronto stores. Um, retail is a different beast. It takes a lot of management. It takes a lot of different skills than say like being just a reseller who sells online or sells at markets or something like that. Like you really got to put the energy in. We learned a lot over the years. Like I'm not going to say like we were amazing at it back in those days. We took more of a hands-on approach, and I think it hurt us to a degree. Like we had some great times, and we had some probably a little rougher times in the retail market. But I think we have a really good grasp on it now, and looking into the future, like we understand it really well. We understand working with teams really well and building those, and the vision is a lot more clear now than it was back then. Back then, it was just Wild West. Let's just go do what we're going to do and hope things work out, And
So
a lot of things have changed. Go ahead.
all right, so you have the stores, the vision is becoming clearer. Now currently, I mean, outside looking in, a lot of the attention is split between the stores and then also was the reworking or still is the reworking. Did
Yeah.
anything kind of happen between the brick and mortar stores and the reworking?
So early on, we were also doing reworking. Another chapter of this is like before the stores.
Can you define reworking for people
Yeah,
who don't know?
of course. Yeah. So reworking is the act of like taking old clothing, altering them in some way, and reselling them. Whether, reworking can be as simple as cutting off your shorts, although we typically don't think of that as reworking, it would be,
Sure.
all the way up to like completely repatterning a t-shirt into a skirt or a dress or something, right?
Right.
Anything where
And what you guys do, you'll cut up a Nike shirt and maybe put it together with 5 or 6 other Nike shirts or North Face shirts and create a whole new look. And it's very sustainable. It reuses the clothes, it keeps them out of the landfill, and then you're able to produce a new product off of that. And you guys built a really nice business on top of that as well.
exactly. And that was, originally it wasn't focused on sustainability, but it was focused on just using what we had. So it's still, I guess, through that like mentality of like, let's create more from what we have access to, created the sustainable model, right?
Right.
And it was early on we were doing that. We again, this is something Jesse started because he was like, I was still snowboarding at the time. Like was um I was a snowboarder, like semi-pro for a long time before I transitioned into the clothing thing. And Jesse was a musician while he transitioned into the clothing thing. Um, by that I mean he's a music producer, DJ, and anyway, so he started to sell at universities. This is another cool thing that like I don't often talk about, but selling at the universities, like just like you go to any market, but sometimes these universities have events.
Yeah,
These kids are there. Some of these schools have like 100,000 students,
sure.
and they want it, right? So it was early on we were going to these universities, and the rework started to supply these schools. It was like, let's make some cool patterns. We had like maybe 3 to 5 styles of reworks we were making, which were like all women's at the time, like women's tops, skirts, dresses. Again, all made out of old T-shirts. And Frankie was the brand. Frankie Collective is the brand that we really created. Originally, it was called Snap, and at some point, I had the idea to like rebrand this and bring on somebody to help us build this into something bigger. And I'll tell you how I got inspired for that was listening to the radio one day. And I don't know if everybody out there remembers Nasty Gal. Nasty Gal might be
Yeah,
still around.
yeah,
And Sophia Amoroso is her name. And she was
yeah,
like the founder of Nasty Gal. She had a TV show about her.
yep.
It's like, and she started in vintage. I don't know if you've heard that
On
story.
eBay, on eBay.
Yeah, yeah. She
Yeah,
started in vintage. And then I heard some like statistics because this is when she was blowing up. Like about 10 years ago, she's blowing up, and the statistics were like she's raking 500 million a month from this Nasty Gal company. And I was like, bing, holy, like we're missing the ball here on the women's market, because at that point, like we're in the snapbacks, we're doing all the men's vintage, we're doing all this stuff, and I was like, we're missing the ball on the women's side of clothing here, because so many vintage sellers focus men's.
dude, I will tell you this. When I see a group of 5 girls walk into my brick and mortar store, that's payday. I know they're coming in there and they're dropping some money and they'll buy the oversized, which is very in. But like you said, that portion of the market, a lot of people ignore, especially the vintage sellers or the vintage community. So, all right, so the light bulb went off. You started doing Frankie Collective, doing the reworks.
Yeah. And yeah, I can I we it was a long road. Like I said, that was 10 years ago. We hired Sarah Gourlay, who stayed with us, and she's still at the company today, who really grew it with us. And we kind of just started, as you would, like started with the website, started doing social media, started creating new styles. Sarah was really good at like predicting trends and forecasting trends and showcasing like not just hot girls in great clothes, right? And like she had the eye to like take the right pictures and the right stuff that like worked for us. And we hit a lot of strides, like, as you would with anything, it's like peaks and valleys, right? But then you'd hit these points where like you'd create a garment and get the right pictures and it would go viral, and then you'd have a boost, right? And then um, so the company grew pretty big. That was like for a period of time, like all of our energy was going into Frankie
Right.
Collective. We were doing crazy revenue. Like, man, there was drop days on Frankie. There was periods in certain garments we made with Frankie, because this was before. Now reworking is pretty heavily known. A lot of people
Yeah,
know it. There's lots of sellers, there's lots of brands, but I will say Frankie Collective helped pioneer that, sort
absolutely.
of like we did with snapbacks, and we
Yep.
we put a lot of people on, right? And then it's awesome, it's an accolade, and it's great, but it also creates like your own competition, right? You're like
Right.
breeding your own
Well,
competition.
you guys were getting knocked off all the time, real fast by like these fast fashion brands who saw you doing these drops, and then next week they're putting it out.
Yeah, 100%, which is so funny because they're copying a rework which is made from old clothing, and then they're bringing it back. We're taking the fast fashion, creating something new and sustainable, and then they're remaking it in fast fashion again because the style was so good.
Right.
So that happened a few times. And yeah, we used to have these drops where we'd put out like 200, 300 maybe of a style, and it would like fly. Like you'd
Wow.
time the drop, you'd post on social media, and I'd sit there and watch Shopify. Anybody who has Shopify knows you can like look at Shopify live, and it'll show you like the sales coming in and where people are buying from, and like it has this dashboard. You sit there and watch the numbers just go crazy, and we would sell out a lot of drops. And there was a few years where that was the norm, right? We would
Wow.
drop new styles, sell out. We would like be racing to produce enough to meet the demand. It was awesome to me. It was awesome. I'm not gonna lie. Like it was super cool to have created that with Jesse, Sarah, the team we had at the time, and have it be such a movement and such a success. And you know, we got super lucky through COVID with it because again, like we all know COVID had a massive online boom, right? Anybody who's
Hmm.
reselling during COVID who was like set up to do it
Yeah,
during COVID did
crushed.
great,
Yeah,
crushed it.
crushed it. Yeah.
So we were set up. We like it was such a time because we cut every like all expenses got slashed because like you so many people had to go home and didn't want to work, but then the people who did want to work were like ready to work because they had nothing else to do. They had certain people that were ready to go like triple time, right?
Hmm.
And we were able to like get enough done where we sustained like a super healthy business through the whole COVID, and again just crushing.
And then eventually that business, what ended up happening with that business later down the line?
So post COVID, obviously, things started to like level back out. It was becoming more apparent that like the market has changed, and me and Jesse were hitting like sort of like kept tapping the rooftop of where we could get it. You know, we'd like make a big leap, and then we'd be like, and then something would happen, and became apparent that we needed to do something else with the company, i.e., bring on an investor, sell it, maybe bring on someone who had the knowledge or resources that we didn't have. Um, we grew that thing solely organic from day one, and we
Nice.
learned as we went. And there was no like formal training. None of us had experience in big brands beyond what we knew on our own, right? So we started shopping it to sell it. We kind of started knocking on doors, talking to people we knew in the industry, gauging interest. And, again, I'll say this was like kismet in a way, or maybe not luck. I don't like this because luck favors the bowl, like luck favors the people who actually go out and take
Yeah.
the steps.
Yeah.
But it worked out, right?
Nice.
Because this was like a post COVID time when brands were looking to buy because they also made money, right? So all the other
Sure.
brands made money and they're like, we
And
need to
money was cheap.
acquire.
And money was cheap for them to go get.
Exactly. Interest rates were down. I think investors were looking to invest. So we actually had a lot of interest. We had like, at one point, we had three companies
Nice.
who came to the table with interest. And then at the end, there was two, and we actually had to make a decision between the two of who we were going to sell the company to. And this was actually a really hard thing because when you when you sell a company, I could talk about that a little bit if you want
Please,
here, but
because no one ever talks about building a brand and selling the brand in this space. I would love to hear all about it.
yeah. So I think there's value in this space for building brands, but you got to think about it a little differently because so often in our industry, when what we do is in here, right? You have to be able to take what you do and get it out of your head and make it so that you can leave, right? So if you
Yeah.
can't walk away from your own business for a week, a month, 6 months, and have it run, you can't really sell it. So that's
No.
like a major tip. And I think it's helpful in building a business to start from the mentality of selling it. Like there's books on this, like Build to Sell, or because if you think about selling it from day one, then you're going to build a successful business that doesn't require you to be stuck in it. That's my first tip on that. But what happened was we were like getting these offers from people. It was very tricky because we had these offers now. When you sell a business, people they want to lock you in, right? Because
Yeah.
they also understand that concept that the founders have the knowledge. They don't just
Right.
want to like buy it and have everybody walk away because then they're stuck trying to scramble to figure out how to run it. So we had one deal out of California that really required us to like move to California, and we actually wanted to do that for a while. Pre-COVID, we would have talks about like maybe we should move to California. Maybe we'll do month on, month off, like bounce around. And then the other company was here in Canada, and wouldn't require any of that. And the structures were so different. One structure was like, we're going to buy 50% of your company for X amount of investment dollars. You'll get a small chunk, but then you'll still own 50%. So like as we grow it, you're going to reap the benefits of that 50%. The other deal was we'll buy the whole company for cash and equity into the parent company. So again, we'll
Okay.
reap the benefits of future growth, but
Nice.
we'll also get some cash, and
Nice.
that equity doesn't involve us having to actively work in the company. There's so many things to consider because usually people like you sell a company, it's like someone hands you a check, okay, bye bye, there's your money. It's never like that. It's never like that. They all have stipulations, and they all require like different considerations, and usually they require you to put in some work.
Gotcha.
Um, so we took the deal in Canada. We remained on the company as working employees and running the company for a year. We just finished that up a month ago, not even a month ago. So it's been, it's hard to leave something that you built like that, but it's
That was going
really
to be my next
cool.
question. Yeah. Was it, I imagine the sale was maybe a little bit stressful for you guys, um, maybe a little bit joyful. And then how is it kind of letting go of something that you guys built for so long?
Yeah, definitely stressful. I'll say that. We had about a year. We had about a year of what you call due diligence.
Yeah,
Okay, so, and then these things always are supposed to be one period of time, and they end up being a totally different period
hurry
of
up and wait,
time.
hurry up and wait,
Yeah.
hurry up
Oh
and wait.
man. And like, get me these documents. I want to do, I need this, I need that, I need that, I need this, and then I need to do interviews with all your employees, and I need to
Yeah,
look into like every little detail of the company. And it's this whole period of them really looking into your company because you could just be full of shit, right? And like
sure.
they have
Absolutely.
to actually check it out of what you're saying is legit. Obviously, if you completely lie about everything, it's fraud. You can't really do, and you could like
And it
it could be
doesn't
like a
progress very far very quickly. So they realize it pretty quick and they walk away. So like once you get,
exactly.
months into it, and they're like, we need this document. You go, what is that document? I got to go find it now, and then provide it to them.
Yeah,
And then, everything goes all good. So like, you sign the paperwork and that's it. What
yeah.
is that
So
feeling?
that feeling was great, man. That feeling
Great.
is
Yeah.
very. I mean, that feeling is like I guess like yes, there is this level like the biggest thing was the hardest part for me because I still got to stay in the company, right?
Yeah.
So that first initial signing and then me staying was actually I for me was really cool. I don't know if it would be like this for everybody because we got to stay on. We got to like tell the teams that we're going to move into a better facility. We're going to have more resources for you guys. We're going to like
Cool.
build something bigger here than what we were able to do without that investment.
Yeah. That's cool.
So that was really cool because when you're a business owner and you're really trying to grow something, you want to create opportunity for the people on the team, right? People
Yeah.
in the company, people who've worked with you. That's a theory of like growth and stuff where you need to grow. There is nothing, you can't stay the same, right? Our world grows fast around us. If you're not growing to keep up with it, you're actually shrinking, right? So
Yeah. Hmm.
this is like a philosophy that I've obviously thought about a lot, but because I've had people in the company sometimes like, why do we got to grow? Why do we got to grow? It's good the way it is. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. Like you
No,
have to grow,
you have to. Because
yeah, in some way or
employee
another.
wages go up, warehouse goes up, gas goes up, your freight goes up, interest rates go up, all of that stuff goes up. So if you stay the same, technically speaking, you are losing money year over year just due to inflation. And I know you talk about this a lot on your podcast, and like that's like the next kind of step past, there's a lot of like vintage guys, like everyone, a lot of people sell vintage, but like that other step of understanding that, growth has to be factored in. You have to, run a business like a business. You have to know your numbers, because if you don't, if you sold the same amount of stuff this year as you did in 2020, 2021, 2022, technically speaking, you will make less money. And for a
Way
lot of
less now. It's
way
crazy.
less, way less.
Yeah.
And we haven't even gotten to the Big Mac inflation. We haven't even gotten to the pizza roll inflation. Pizza rolls used to be $3. Now they're $9. So like we haven't even gotten into that. But like unfortunately with business, a lot of times you have to do more work for the same amount of money. And
Yeah.
all of that kind of has to be factored in, and you have to have the foresight of growth. Like, hey, we have to grow X amount to sustain and offset you wanting a raise, insurance going up. If you're renting a building, that goes up 5% every single year, and 5% on 5% on 5%, that adds up real quick.
Yeah, totally. So I think it's important to instill this mindset in your team because they need to know that what they're working towards isn't just more money in your pocket. It's more money in their pocket. It's a future for them, right? And a future for their teammates. And accountability in a company needs to be not just to the owners, but
The
team to
company.
team,
Yeah.
right? And the
Yeah.
company and like the people, right?
Yeah.
So this is something that was like the next phase. It needed to happen. So I was excited to do that and grow it and then become like I also got to become an employee for the first time in ever, which some entrepreneurs would be like, that's really hard to do. And it was hard to do for some aspects, but then other aspects I was like, this is nice. Like it's cool to
Yeah.
just be able to
Clock
go
out.
in, clock out, do my thing. And also a big thing that I didn't realize that was really cool is that working with the big corporate entities, so they're called ecologists. They're a company here in Canada. They have their own brand, ecologists, but they're also a parent company now, and they're buying up other companies. They focus on sustainable clothing, which is like wools, cottons, really local production, like sustainability, not from a recycling place, but from a circular fashion place, and they're creating this ecosystem of other circular fashion brands, right? Through um, through bringing on like capital investment, right? So how that happened was we got some equity in that company, and then we got paid out. And there's always bonus structures of if the company reaches X amount, you get more money. So then there's
Sure.
that's always how these deals work. So what I was gonna say is I learned a lot from being able to work with that company, right? Like
Yeah.
getting thrown into like a bigger corporate structure taught me so much about how that world works, how to be more organized as a company, how to have better meeting structures, how to maybe like the idea of raising capital now is like not so foreign to me. I'm like, I understand how that world works now. So I kind of got like this year long lesson in like corporate infrastructure, which was also invaluable.
Absolutely. All right. So that's the evolution of Drew, Jesse, the whole team over there. Pioneers all along the way. Um, you guys did a lot of what I kind of got introduced to you first was always the dead stock digs. So now we're gonna go back. So
Sure.
everyone loves dead stock. So for the people that don't know dead stock is like stuff that would have been on a store shelf, did not get sold, and then it goes back to a warehouse or goes in the back room or something like that. The SKU is dead, so it goes to the back. And for you guys have been all over the country, all over North America, digging out snapbacks, digging out old stuff. Just tell us a story about maybe the coolest dead stock dig that you guys have ever had.
Oh wow.
I know that you guys have a
Um,
lot. You guys might be the champions of dead stock digs, so I know this is hard.
yeah, there was lots of great ones, and I uh, again got to give Jesse a shout out for like being one of the first pioneers of this on his New York trips. Right, I think one of the first places he went to was Brooklyn. This place called S&H. It was like a three-level sports retailer in Brooklyn that he got put onto by a young group of kids that were coming to his pop-ups. I got to go there years later because they had stuff for years. Because some of these places, like the
Yeah,
basements, were like thousands and thousands of garments. Like you never buy it all, but some of them we did buy it all, right? Because
yeah,
if you find it, you want to buy it all.
you got to get it.
Um, let me tell you about one. All right, so okay, we went. This was fun with our old partner Daniel and Jesse and myself. We drove here. This was again like a lead we got from a friend who was like, I got a lead on a guy. I want to do it with you guys. We'll do it together. We'll kind of split it. And we're like, sure, that sounds fun. Why not? Back in those days, I wish we would have documented more. Like we documented a little bit. This was
Yeah.
early in YouTube too. Like I wish I would have filmed all this stuff because there was so much more adventures. We were younger. We didn't have families. We were just like rocking on the road, you know. Um, but so we drove from Vancouver to Spokane. It's quite a long drive through the desert, and Spokane's like a you know city in Washington State in the middle of nowhere, small town. I don't know, 100,000 people or something. Forget the guy's name, but he had like a cool sports store there. And it was like, typically these places are just like retailers that didn't move the product, and I guess they didn't know what to do with the product.
Yeah.
And a lot of them would have new products still, like
Right.
they would continue buying, but like they would never like liquidate this old stuff. So sometimes you walk in the store and there's like a brand new 2000 and whatever. This would have been like 2012 or something. So it's like a 2012 product right beside like a 94 product still on the rack, and you're like,
Yeah.
wow, this is wild. This place had a lot of snapbacks. I remember like stacks of starter jackets from this place. Like you just were racking the starter jackets.
Wow.
Um, he had a lot of old dead stock like Russell t-shirts from this, even from earlier, from like the 80s and 70s that were like up in his barn. And he was like, so we dug out the store. We're getting all these wicked snapbacks, and a lot of jackets, like a lot of starter pullovers, a lot of starter satins. I think there was like sweatshirts in this dig. It's hard to remember exactly the product. You're just so hyped at these occasions. You're just like racking all this stuff.
Yeah.
And
No
sometimes it's
better
hard to make.
feeling.
And sometimes it's hard to make the deals with these people because a lot of times the reason people have the stuff still is because there's like some inkling of mental illness,
They're
right?
attached to it. Yeah. They love the
There's
product.
there's like a hoarder mentality with it. Like I paid this much, I need to get my retail, even though it's 25 years later.
Right.
So it can be a struggle getting this product off these people. But this guy, we ended up making a great deal, and then he had like a storage barn that was in this. Actually, it wasn't a barn; it was like an old building, like a crazy old building in like the next town, like in like a 150-year-old building. So he takes us up into like this second level of this old building. It's all like dusty old wood and brick building. And we're cracking the boxes of all this old these 70s Russell tees, and I don't even remember what else we got in there. I remember there was like Seahawks colorway stuff he
Nice.
had, which was cool because it was Washington. Um, and that was just a really fun trip. We ended up totally filling the car with as much as we could stuff in it. We're like cramming boxes in and cramming pieces in like crevices to like fill the car. And it was just a good road trip. But
Yeah. And you
yeah,
and Jesse, you have a couple good stories on your channel, road tripping for snapbacks and like one of them I remember you said that one of you guys were driving and you actually saw like a sports specialties logo painted on the side of a building or something. And then you guys went in there and it was just snapbacks for days.
yeah. So I can tell this story too because like this I'm pretty sure the guy actually passed away. R.I.P. His name was Gene. He was Eclipse. So the story goes. Jesse, at one point, we used to go to L.A. We've been going to Rose Bowl for the whole time we've been in vintage. We've been going down to California, and I will say that it was part of our evolution to like learn. We would sell there, but we also got to learn from like the best of the best. We got to like experience like the vintage world that's like the bigger picture world of say Europe and Japan and all the different things that happen in California. California, for people that don't know, is like quite a hub for vintage clothing, right? It's like New York, LA, maybe London, but there's certain towns that like when you're talking like vintage as fashion in the world, like those are the towns, right? Um, so we would go there a lot, and this was like during the snapback boom. And Jesse, I think I went surfing that day or something because I'm like really into surfing, and Jesse's like, I'm just gonna go drive around and see what I can find because you never know where these places are. You can't just open the phone book, you can't just Google them. Like these people,
No.
and if they were on Google, it would be gone already, right?
Yeah, you don't want the ones on Google.
You don't want the ones on Google. So So he just was driving around, and he's like you said, he saw the sign. These old sports stores used to have these wicked painted motifs on the front that would just be like a Nike logo, a starter logo, a
Yeah.
sports specialty logo, and it
Yeah.
just would have all the logos of whatever they
Yeah.
sold. Maybe like a Timberland logo, you know, and
Like
which I love that
Joe's
look
sports store, a whole bunch of logos all over it. Yeah.
totally. So he saw this and he went in, and lo and behold, again, it's like a sports store that's all crammed with like every nook and cranny with like jersey racks that are like smushed like worse than this. Like we can barely like open the jersey. You can barely like shop the thing. You're like, this is crazy. Talk to the owner or whoever's at the counter, and they're like, oh yeah, like I'll get my boss. Boss comes out the back. Oh, I happen to have this huge 10,000 square foot warehouse that's behind the
Oh my
store. And they're like,
goodness.
holy, what the hell? So that was the first entrance into this place. Sports, it was called Eclipse. Gene was the owner. Like I said, RIP Gene. I found out a couple of years ago that he passed. And so his warehouse was chock full. It's like, picture that scene in Indiana Jones when they're putting away the Ark of the Covenant, and it's like the hallway of boxes. It's like that, aisles of boxes of snapbacks all the way up, pallet racking on both sides.
Oh my goodness.
And all they're labeled is like, some of them were labeled by team, but some of them weren't. And it was like, this place was huge. So basically, we go in, we talk to him. I think that day Jesse like bought a few things, but he's like, this place is crazy. Like, need to go back, like tripping. Like they probably bought like 200-300 snapbacks that first day. And then basically for the next like 5 years, we would go to this place. Other people knew about it, but it wasn't widely known. We knew other snapback guys that knew about it, but you had to dig, because
Yeah.
what he would do is he'd be like, you can just go in the back and look, right? And in those early days, we would be pretty picky of what we were taking, because
That was going to be one of
every,
my questions. Tell me about the stuff you passed that you pull your
yeah.
hair out.
Well, geez, I think those first digs, there was like cases of Raptors scripts, and I remember like Celtic scripts, and probably every team,
Yeah.
uh, that's the kind of stuff that we were buying. But then in the early days, like Splash and Sharktooth weren't the thing. They
Yeah.
were like kind of frou-frou-y, not as cool. It wasn't until like later that those became the ones that everybody wanted. So we probably originally passed on some of that stuff, and then like tried to go get it later, hoping that it was still there. And sometimes it was, sometimes it wasn't.
Yeah.
Because we're talking like it could be like 5-6 years gap in
And
between these
you never
styles
know.
happening.
Yeah.
You never
And
know.
like tomorrow, FUBU could be the hottest thing, but how much FUBU have we passed on during that time? You just don't know. You gotta strike while the iron is hot. So like you said, none of it
Yeah.
was marked. You just had to go in there and dig and then
Yeah, there'd be
find
a
what you find.
box like with the team name, and you'd pull the, a snapback box. It's like a
Yeah.
12 hat box,
Case.
or
Yeah.
a 24 hat box. Sorry.
Yep.
And you'd open it up, and it would be like a bunch of like Velcro Vikings hats, then like a bunch of like new Vikings hats, and then like there'll be like a 3 or 4 like snapbacks. Boom. You're like, sick. These are good. So you'd be going through these boxes, and maybe some would hit, and then you'd go through 10 that were like new and weird, because for just years they were just like putting them in boxes and putting them on a shelf, putting them in boxes,
Yeah.
putting them on a shelf. You never know what you're going to hit. So it went on like this for a long time, and eventually what happened was Gene, the owner, wanted we worked with him so much that he was, and this place started at $3, by the way, maybe cheaper, maybe it started at $2. Eventually he was a distributor, right? Nobody has a warehouse like that full of hats who's not distributing hats,
Sure.
right? So he
Yeah.
was distributing hats. So what he started to do was call his
Wow.
customers and then
Wow.
buy back snapback. He was like, listen, I'll buy all your old stuff. So he was buying all his customers' old hats back. So it was this up thing where like you'd go 1 month and he'd be like, I just got 2 more pallets of old from this other guy that I knew. And there'd be
Wow.
new old
Smart
there that
guy.
that wasn't even there.
Yeah, smart guy.
Smart guy. And then he even went as far as to like start licensing deals with a bunch of the brands like Adidas and the companies that own the licenses for the leagues at the time, and was creating like the retro. When we call retro snapback, they're like
Wow.
vintage inspired snapbacks that he was selling. So
Wow.
he did really well off the whole boom because he was selling thousands of the retro snapbacks at the time, selling as much vintage as he could get. He had like two or three stores, but it was mainly like distribution, and that was one of our main sources for years and years. Is super cool, and then we became really good friends with the guy and his whole crew there.
So you touched on it a little bit, like acquiring the knowledge. You went out to Rose Bowl a lot, got immersed into, you know, that community of buyers coming from Japan, the community of buyers that went to Rose Bowl all the time. You grew up inside of it. And on your channel, one of my favorite videos is you actually showing people how to date Patagonia. And you have an insane Patagonia collection. You show talk about super rare stuff. Like not a lot of people know that Patagonia actually made military stuff. And if you can find military Patagonia stuff, you might be able to buy a Ford Fiesta if you sell the jacket. Like it's going to go for 1,000 or 2,000 bucks. So how do you kind of continue the learning or acquire all the knowledge inside of your head? Because I bring you up from time to time inside of the group where I know a lot about a lot of stuff, but there's two people that I go to when I have a question, and I've come to you with a question a time or two. I go to you and I go to Corby from Full Court. And if us three don't know, we don't
Yeah,
know. But so how, and because like you know a lot about a lot of stuff, like Polo, you know a lot. Afterhood, you know a lot. Champion, Levi's, Vintage, Patagonia, like you know a lot about all this stuff. So like, how can people kind of take the first steps or kind of like start acquiring that knowledge? Because knowledge is king. Knowledge and the amount of opportunities that you get are going to be a direct correlation of how successful you are doing this.
yeah, I agree. So, how to get the knowledge? You know, it comes with time. There's not a lot. I mean, you can do a lot. You can study. You can study this stuff. You can go buy books. You can go buy magazines. And again, like you said, it's a lot of international stuff here. You know, the rest of the world knows more about our clothing than America does,
Yeah.
right? And
Americana.
that's
Yeah.
America. That's just the facts. And it's been like that since this boom, since like vintage clothing as like a worldwide phenomenon kind of started in the 90s. You know, I'll touch on this, but it started with Levi's, really. It started with Levi's. Levi's are like the ultimate symbol of American culture. The ultimate piece of Americana is the blue jean, right?
Yep.
And Levi's is the creator of that, arguably, but there's other people probably, but they're the ones that are still doing it and the original. So there's a whole world of just that, a whole world
Just
of
that.
just Levi's. And then
And then
there's a whole
inside of
world of
Levi's, there's a whole world of just that inside of Levi's.
yeah, like the subgenres and I don't know, like as far as Levi's aficionados go, I know nothing. I know
Yeah.
enough to know that I have something, but I don't know like the details, right?
Right.
And I think that's another thing to think about too is like you don't need to know everything about everything because you can't. I don't think that's possible.
No.
I learn all this stuff nowadays from these other sellers. I get excited on learning things that isn't about clothes now, like some weird thing that's worth money that I had no idea because that excites me. But obviously, I still continue my education in clothing. But again, I've always been on the model of like I just got to know enough, and then when I find something, I'll learn more, right?
Yeah.
And you want to put yourself around people who are knowledgeable, like we've touched on. We go to California. I'm surrounding myself with like the best in the business for this stuff, and eventually you become friends with them. You know, you're selling to them, but they're also teaching you all the time. And it really is an immersion in the clothing. So you want to immerse yourself in the clothing. You want to go to these events. You want to go to the markets. You want to shop the racks, even if you're not going to buy, just to like touch it, to feel it,
And
to see
look
it.
at their prices.
Yeah, look at
Yeah.
their pricing and also look at the details. Look at the tags. Look at like why is something something, you know, like not just like, oh, this is that and it's this much, but can you tell the difference between an Urban Outfitters one and one that's actually like those are the details you got to know to actually be
Yeah.
successful.
And also don't be afraid to talk to people. I dare you to ask a vintage person why their item is cool. You won't be able to shut them up after that. They'll tell you everything.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, don't be
And
afraid to talk to people.
100%. And any good vintage dealer would happily discuss it and also have that knowledge for you, right? Because they had to
Yeah,
price it in the first place.
sure. So
So,
you have the knowledge of the product, and this is something that we also talk about a lot. Knowledge of our buyer and knowledge of our customer. So you have a wide variety of customers. You sell online, you do lives online, you have a lot of sales on Instagram, you have Frankie, you have the website, you sell on eBay, you have the brick and mortar stores. All of those customers are different. So
Totally.
how do you get to know your customer, and how do you make sure that you are advertising directly to that customer that is looking for the item?
Great question. Huh. We did a lot of work on this through Frankie, but I also think about this a lot. Like, as sellers, we wear all the hats, right? Anybody watching this, you guys are obviously resellers, you guys are eBay people, or you're selling on whatnot or whatever platforms you're selling on. You're not only the sourcer, you're the marketer, right?
Everything.
And when we're talking about customers and how to get them, it's a function of marketing, right? So how do we do that? I mean, it's important. There's a lot of trial and error, there's a lot of testing, but it's identifying who your who your customer is, but then using the data to make decisions, right? We talk a lot about data now, like in our company, because with anything you can get the data. If you're on eBay, like you can pull up your all your analytics on eBay and look at the data of like your people. I've never done a lot of that, but I'm sure they have a pretty in depth,
They
like
have a lot. But like
a
just as
lot,
an
right?
example, you mentioned the marketing for Frankie was put cool clothes on cool girls. That's
Yeah,
different marketing than putting something in your brick and mortar store or
totally.
advertising on Instagram, or for eBay, it's very keyword you're very keyword centric. So like if you
Yeah,
have a polo Ralph Lauren shirt, you do the search, there's over a million available. But if you have the right keyword like polo Ralph Lauren, big pony Spain, there's only 86 of those and it turns into 150% sell through. Or if you have a Nike shirt, there's a million Nike shirts, but if you know that Prefontaine or what's special about this Prefontaine shirt, even new Nike Prefontaine shirt, since you have the right keyword, it turns into getting lost in the abyss of 1 million or have a 100% sell through. But that's the keyword. And you have to know the customer that's looking for the Prefontaine shirt is going
yeah.
to search those keywords: track and field, running, maybe something about Oregon, maybe yellow and green is going to sell better. You have to include Prefontaine. You have to know all of this stuff because that customer that's looking for that shirt is going to search those terms.
Yeah, and like you talk about this a lot in your group. It's like the looking at what other people have done. So like duplicating the listings and looking at what other people have sold them for, and um and and I guess just studying what the customer base is. Like my store is like quite like a nicely well-rounded vintage store, which is interesting because that used to be the norm, but now it's not the norm. Now it's like you have way more like the say hype vintage store, which is like t-shirts and sneakers. But mine is like well-rounded, right? So I try to put like I try to be known for that. I try to market to like a customer who knows they can expect to come in and get a full outfit from my store, right? So the marketing in my store becomes like I have like a mixed bag. I do quite generalized marketing to get as many people through the door as I can because most people will find something they like. Now,
Nice.
like say like with certain genres of clothing, again, like certain genres of clothing will do better on certain platforms too. Like you
There
know
you go.
this
Yeah.
too from like say like Y2K is probably going to sell on Depop a lot quicker than it's going to, or maybe eBay too, but like probably quicker on Depop because you have this young customer base who
Yeah.
wants to spend 20 to 50 bucks on a garment. They're like kind of ahead on the trends, right? Like they're the
There you
first
go.
movers on these
There you
new
go.
vintage trends.
There you
Where
go.
like an eBay customer is like you're saying like could be like somebody looking for a specific garment, an athletic piece, or like some fashion piece, or some shoes, or something that they
Yeah.
like need to find, and it's more search based. Where and I notice a lot of this, but it's like how much can I do, and how much do I want to play into all these different markets? Which is kind of hence why I'm doing like this growth plan on retail because I feel like in my current state where I'm in my 40s. I want to like I want to build this business large, but I don't want to like be tinkering around a lot on like multiple platforms and all these different things. Like we still have our eBay store, which has been doing pretty decent. Thanks a lot to your group and learning the tips and tricks that are like current in the game. So definitely shout out you guys for having that, and you especially. And like that's taught us a lot. And again, a lot of that is just really consistency and like learning the market, being consistent. Uh, yeah, I would say consistency over anything.
over everything,
I know
right?
you preach that like
Absolutely. All
crazy.
right. So I have one more serious question, then we'll wrap it up
Sure.
with some fun ones real quick. You, this is a quote from you. You said Lululemon bought your house.
Yeah,
So
totally.
what I want to talk about for that is you are a vintage guy, and it's okay not to sell vintage clothing.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
But
I
you
will
know there's a
preach that
stigma there. You know there's a stigma of
for
I'm a
sure.
vintage guy, so I pass on Tommy Bahama shirts that are worth $50 because I'm a vintage guy.
For sure, there's a stigma there, and that stigma is wrapped in ego, right? And when I in I've always had this mentality, but I'm going to take opportunities when they come, and I also always have had to take certain opportunities not just for myself, but to keep certain deals running. Like that Lululemon deal. So what you're referring to is I had a deal where I was mainlining Lululemon store returns and IRs and overruns and things that they needed to get rid of.
Yep.
And this was at the peak of Lululemon before they had stores everywhere. Stuff sold like crazy. Stuff sold on eBay like crazy. Stuff sold. I put it on Craigslist and I'd have people knocking on my front door to come buy this shit like crazy. I would do these mini like pop up things. It was just crazy. Easiest money I ever made, probably still to this day.
And it
But
wasn't vintage. And it wasn't
it,
vintage.
oh no, this is brand new, like stuff that
Yeah.
was made in the last 6 months, but it was branded, good quality, and it sold. And I will take that opportunity any day of the week because to build a huge business, I don't. It's really tricky on just vintage. Obviously, we did this Yeezy deal recently where we got the Yeezy stuff that
Yep.
was the canceled season, right? Which we
For the
still have
gap.
on our website now from the Gap. And people were hating on this, like, what? Why are you doing that? Like, this is whack. Blah blah blah. Blah. And I'm like, okay, fair. Like, whatever your views are on the whole Yeezy thing, but again, this is an opportunity based thing where it fell into our lap. We'd be stupid not to take it, and we've sold, I don't know, half a
Done
million
great.
in Yeezy.
And
So
and what? 8 months?
yeah,
Yeah.
like insane. And of course I'm going to take that deal. And I think the stigma around that is like it's ego. It's ego, and I guess it's okay not to want to do that. It's okay if you really want to niche down and do your thing. That's fine too. I'm not
Yeah.
bagging on that. But in order for us to grow what we've grown and to support the people we've supported and be able to create what we've created, like we've had to take these opportunities. I got no regrets in it. I do not have an issue with like image or what people think of me. I've let that go a long time ago. If you follow me or watch the YouTubes or whatever, you'll know that I've let that go a long time ago. Uh, and I'm happier for it. So
Yeah. Because if it was up to me, I would love to sell big logos, polo ball jackets, and Stadium 92 my entire business. That's what I would prefer. Unfortunately, I can't build the size of business that I want selling that. So now I have to sell Tommy Bahama shirts. I have to sell Vineyard Vines, and I have to do that. And like you said, that those deals and that profit and that cash infusion helped grow these other businesses that are really part of your passion where maybe the Lululemon was more of a widget. You know, this deal, this opportunity, it's a widget. I'm going to take it for what it is, fuel it into the other businesses, and then, I have more of a passion for that. So I just
totally.
wanted to talk about that for a little bit because you are the epitome of all things vintage, but you're not afraid to take these opportunities that come. I mean, the money is still green, and if you can process it, and if it can go through the same machine, the
Yeah.
money's there.
Why not? And I think I talk about this sometimes too, but I'm concerned with the month over month revenue, right?
Yeah.
Gross profit versus net profit, and month over month dollars, right? I'm not concerned with did I sell a Nirvana? Like, in the end of the day, do you remember what month you sold the $1,000 Nirvana shirt? Who gives a What I care about is month over month revenue and profits. So if I have to take a deal of new clothing to make that the goal I want, I'm going to do it. I say this too a lot. Like, the goal is here, which is like the amount the company needs to make
Yep.
to grow the way we want. To get there might not be this perfectly straight line of this vision that you have. It might be the jagged road. Don't be afraid to take the path that you have to take to get to the goal. If you're committed to the goal, it depends. Like, some people are committed to the journey, right? And
Sure.
that's okay too for you. But I have to be committed to the goal because we have things we're out to accomplish. We have people we're responsible for.
Responsibilities. Yeah, absolutely. All right. This is going to be a hard question, maybe the hardest question of the whole podcast.
Okay.
What do you collect?
Uh, uh, so, like you touched on, I collect Patagonia a lot,
A
and
lot of it.
a
Great
lot of
video. Of no,
Patagonia.
if you haven't seen the video, go to FASINFRANK. I learned a ton from your Patagonia videos. Great, great videos. Maybe the best Patagonia videos on the internet.
Wow, that's super rad. Thank you for that. And again, that's something I learned from my Japanese clients. There was years that I was getting this Patagonia stuff, and I didn't even know those things until eventually we sat and we had some deep chats about it, because these guys knew more than me for years, and it took me like asking the questions and really diving into it to figure that out. And like you said, I put some resources on the YouTube channel, so
Yep.
check it out. But yeah, Patagonia, I like it because it has a great history. Yvon Chouinard as a human is a very amazing pioneer of utilitarian clothing. A bad word, but like athletic,
Yeah.
sport specific clothing, right?
Yeah.
Stuff that has a function, functional clothing.
Functional. Yep.
And he's also very he's a pioneer in business, right? He has books out about how he built that company, and it's very admirable. So I look up to him as a human and what he's done. The company, I've said this before too, but I don't really like, company now is a corporate monster that has its own thing going on. I'm not saying like what Patagonia does today is what I
Yeah.
all agree with, but I love the history of it. I love what he's built. The clothing is very interesting because it holds function. I'll say that the most interesting clothing, the most cool, old fashioned things that I like are functional clothing,
Functional.
whether that be hunting, military, sports, old sports clothing, Patagonia, because it serves a purpose. All these things, the details have meaning. They're not just there to look cool to go to a dinner party. They have like functional meaning for
Sure.
a purpose, work, going to war, holding your bullets,
Holding
holding your
holding
crampons.
your duck in the back of a polo jacket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, like when you talk polo, they took inspiration from all of that stuff to make cool fashion. So you can learn so much from functional clothing. It's really what interests me. And besides that, like, I just collect other things that I like. Like, I collect old T-shirts from my childhood, like the grunge era, and skateboarding and snowboarding and
Snowboard stuff. Yeah.
stuff that like interests me, and I guess hits my nostalgia, right? Stuff that hits my nostalgia.
And you also have some very cool videos. You need to do another one of you going through Jesse's polo collection. I think you have two of them. Dude, those videos are awesome. Like, if I collected anything, it would be polo stuff. I think Jesse's collection is so beautiful, man. And like, you guys, you explain it. So like, if you want to learn about Patagonia, you want to learn about polo, definitely check out those videos. And hopefully one day I could get Jesse on here. I might have to get my weight up. Maybe you could put in a good word for me, but I would love to talk to Jesse about polo and his version of the story too. Because you guys, whether you like to admit, I know you're a very humble guy. You guys are definitely pioneers and have paved the way for, a lot of us who do this today in our iteration of it. And you've done it in every single iteration. So what is the coolest thing that you have ever found?
Coolest thing that I've ever found.
Or most
Good.
expensive?
Yeah, okay, well, I'll talk most expensive. So I found from a picker. A lot of times we buy from other pickers, right? It's
Yeah.
not always like on the rack. Well, it's hardly ever on the rack in a thrift, but it's not always from a rag house. We buy a lot from other pickers. And again, this goes back to the knowledge based thing. The more you know, the better chance you have of finding something that is going to be worth more than the person knows, right? And at the time, so I found it from a picker. It's kind of an interesting story. I found it from a picker. I did a lot of business with this picker over the years, and I had like put the thing aside, and I'm like, I'm coming back in the morning because I had a pile that I was going to buy, and I was going to dig more and then buy more. We kind of talked about the price of this one garment, and then I came back the next day, and he's like, "Oh no, I can't sell this one to you." And I'm
Oh,
like, sometimes this happens, or you. There's been a few times when we've tried to make deals, and like people will pull things at the last minute. You're like, "What the?
yeah.
We already talked about the price of this." Anyway, I ended up getting it, but it cost me like quite a bit more than I had originally thought. So I ended up, I think we had made a deal for 1,000. I ended up paying 1,500 in the end for it. But to me, at that point, I was gambling because
Okay.
I was like, I don't know
Yeah.
if this is a good buy,
You
right?
saw a couple
Like
check boxes ticked, but not sure. You got to go home and do more research.
exactly. And I at that point, you couldn't even do. It was harder even to do research on it. It was kind of one of those things that I was like, I just had the gut feeling. So what this was an early Filson piece. Filson is again an Americana company that goes back to the 1800s, late 1800s. So this Filson piece was their most iconic piece is called the cruiser jacket, right? You've had these tons of times, I'm sure. It's they make them in wool and they make them in the duck canvas, right?
Mhm.
It's like this just really classic full button hunting jacket. You've probably all seen it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. Filson
Mhm.
cruiser jacket. Anyway, this was the cruiser shirt, which they don't make anymore. They made it for a short period of time. It was dated 1914. It had a cool chin strap. These really sick like pearl buttons on it. So like
Wow.
they were like natural looking pearl buttons, like really primitive kind of looking vibes, and like pretty pristine garment, duck canvas, really cool.
From
Checked all the
1914?
boxes. 1914, and it was a
Wow.
pullover shirt, so it had like the cruiser buttons like halfway down on it, right? So anyway, I bought this piece. I was thinking in my brain like, okay, I could probably get like 3 grand, whatever, double money.
Wow.
And this is another testament to the internet, where early days of our website, we had like we weren't going to Rose Bowl for like another couple weeks, so we threw it on the blog. Right, this is when blogs were hitting.
Blog. Okay.
Yeah, we had our blog, which is, people still do that. I don't really know. And we got started. So I guess somebody found it on the blog like within days. And there's
Okay.
like these collectors that were like, I've been looking for this piece for years. And then we just had this bidding war go down, went crazy. And the price went way the fuck up. And we were like, wow, like we had no clue. And it's kind of lucky because if we had just brought it to Rose Bowl, I probably would have taken the 3 grand,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, in the end, this shirt sold for 20K,
$20,000?
$20,000
Wow. On a blog.
on a blog. So obviously it was like a private sale. People were like messaging us direct, but it was because that certain people saw it and it went up to 20 grand. We were obviously super stoked. That's the most expensive thing we've ever sold still to this day, which is crazy to think too, because you see sales now of like $80,000 jeans or $100,000 jeans. It's like we've never had a pair of jeans
Yeah.
that we've
Or
sold for that. And I've
$6,000 genie shirts. Like,
never had that either. Yeah.
I
Even if
mean,
I did, I know I would never get that money. There's just like this curse of like, I'm never going to get this like hype top dollar for some stupid thing?
never. Man, that is a crazy sale. $20,000. And did that stay in America or go overseas?
No, it ended up staying in America. I'm pretty
Wow.
sure. I don't know what happened. I'm not going to say who bought it, but
No, of course.
yeah, the guy I sold it to probably flipped it, made 30 grand. He probably made his money too. So that thing was not even end user. Like that thing had legs still to keep going.
Yeah, you're probably right. Absolutely. Especially to find it on some obscure blog on some corner of the internet. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So to wrap it up, you've done it all. You grew up in the rag business. Dad, Woodstock seller. Great interviews on your channel. You've done FASINFRANK, pioneers of snapbacks, pioneers of vintage, did the reworks, got the brick and mortar stores when a lot of people didn't have those. First one on the block for Lululemon out the gate. What's next for Drew? What's
Uh,
next, guys? What's next for the Empire?
well, thanks for this is gonna set my day off right. All these accolades. Now I'm gonna be like stoked to
No,
go
it's all
attack.
true though, and like people, you know, most of the time, like they talk about on Drink Champs, like people give the roses after people are gone, but like, dude, your family, your brother, you guys have truly paved the way for anyone that resells clothing. You guys are one of the first ones to do it on every single level, locally, at the markets, online, creating a website. You guys are one of the first ones to do it, and no one can say otherwise. It's undisputed.
Yeah. Well, I thank you, and it's cool to like kind of go down memory lane here with you about all those different times. It has been a lot of fun. It's been an amazing journey to get to where we are. And what's next for us is we put out a recent episode of the podcast, my podcast, where we talked with Amy, our new partner. So we've actually taken on a new partner, and this is interesting because there's been times where we're like, we're never going to do that. We're never going to take on a partner. You know, we're never going to go down that road. We have in the past, and it hasn't always ended great. So, but when we look at why we partner with Amy, it's because she complements so many things that we aren't great at, and vice versa for her. So we're looking at this as like this cohesive thing now, and we've created plans together. So the next phase of our our company, F as in Frank, is to really go out and create a large scale retail operation. We want to open a lot of stores. We want to have F as in Frank be a household name. We want to have F as in Frank and what we're doing as a team create a bigger impact in the world of saving clothing and offering customers an alternative to what's out there on the market on a big scale, right? Like we want to be that for the market. And we've we've created plans, and we're currently in this big growth era. Like you said, we just opened the new store, and we already have location for the next one, and then we're already
Nice.
talking about the one after that. So we're really in a growth time for the company now, knowing what I know from having Frankie and building something that is going to be sustainable, profitable, and sustainable not from like a eco-conscious level, but sustainable from like a profitability
Yeah,
level on how to build
monetarily.
something, right?
Yeah.
Monetarily. It's all kind of lining up, and all these things that we've done, we've talked about, have led me to this point where this is the next phase. So keep your eye out for F and Frank, because we're going to be we might be popping up a store in your town very shortly.
Let's go. All right. Well, I appreciate you for coming on. Let people know where they can find you, Instagram, YouTube.
So yeah, it's at Drew Heifetz, my name on Instagram. Also, the company is F as in Frank, just spelled out. All the stores have their own IGs, and there's a main account there. And then YouTube is F as in Frank Vintage. You'll find my podcast there. Lots of informational videos, like Tex said,
Tons.
on
Yep.
Patagonia and all kinds of stuff. So tune in, and yeah, thanks everyone for listening.
Yep. And if you don't know how to spell the last name, you can go to my Instagram. I only follow 24 people, and Drew is one of them. Jesse is his brother. So you can find both right there. So thank you again for coming on. When I have guests on like you, I just want to listen. I didn't hardly say much this episode, but that's great. We have 2 ears, one mouth. We listen. Drew shared a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, and we could probably do this podcast 10 times and there would still be new stories and new information and new knowledge for all of us to grasp. So I do appreciate you coming on here. I know it's been a long time coming. I'm going to jump on your podcast. That's going to be
Hell
released
yeah,
around the same
excited.
time. And that one, I guess, will be in reverse. I guess Drew will be asking me questions. But for this one, I just wanted to share, the gift that you are and everything that you've done and all of your accomplishments. And it's not BS. Like if it wasn't for you guys and like what you guys did, the game might not be what it is today. So I appreciate you and I appreciate all you guys have done, and I do appreciate you for being on with us. So Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a blast. I appreciate it. And yeah, I can't wait to get you on mine and reverse the chairs.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right.